So there's a record button's on, and I need to try and get my presentation up, which is here, hopefully. And okay, can everybody see that?
Yeah.
And you can hear me okay?
Yep.
So I just want to welcome everybody and thank you for joining my my room. It's always a bit of a worry, do you think, when you people can choose rooms and like, oh my God, is anybody going to join me? So this is, thank you very much. I just want to talk literally for 10 minutes about the Larder and set the scene a little bit and let you know what we're trying to do. And then I'd really love to have a discussion with you, because there isn't an answer to the question. So the question I'm throwing out is, how do we provide people on very low incomes with access to affordable, healthy, local produce without farmers, producers, the environment, animals bearing the cost? And it's something that we've been working on for a while. We haven't got an answer. We're just experimenting with various ways of working. And we've got some plans to develop something around cryptocurrency, which I'm not going to pretend that I understand, but I can tell you briefly what that's about. I'll just give you a bit of an overview of who we are at the Larder. So this is our space that we have at the Larder. This is, I set the Larder up as a social enterprise. I started working on it about 10 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago. We set up as a social enterprise. And then 3 years ago, we became a workers' cooperative. And then 2.5 years ago, we secured this premises in Preston. And we set it up as a cafe, and we run courses, and we were doing really well building up until COVID. So you can see there that when people walk into the cafe, we want them to know about sustainability. We want people to understand, start to question where the food comes from. We have a map up on the wall which shows where our producers are, and everything that we source is sourced either locally or ethically, or at least we put a lot of thought into how we source each ingredient, and all of our items on the menu are cooked from scratch, apart from our bread, which is made by a guy that is local, and he makes this amazing sourdough. So we do our best. It's a big experiment. It's basically an experiment to see if it can happen in a place like Preston, which is a high incidence of poverty, and is doesn't necessarily have really healthy food culture. So we try to use this space as a bit of a hub, and I'll just move on to the next slide and explain where all this came from. So in about 2000, and I'm completely lost track of time. So about 8 years ago, we worked with set up a group called Sustainable Food Lancashire, and we developed a charter with public health. And this charter was really focusing around the 6 key areas that sustainable food cities focus on. But we wanted to do a consultation to make sure that people had their say. So we consulted with about 400 people across Lancashire. That took about 2 years actually to produce this document. So we try to use these principles to work. We try and make sure that everything we do, we work towards these principles. So this is the kind of idea that we had initially, that we want to create. So what we have, what we're trying to do is demonstrate a healthy, sustainable food system at a micro level, and develop something that could potentially scaled up or replicated in other areas. So what we have is a food academy. So we run accredited and non-accredited courses, all kind of food and health related. We've started doing business courses now, kind of continuously develop our what we offer based on what people ask for. We have a cafe and outside catering business, although the cafe closed its doors on the 21st of March last year. We haven't opened, but we have opened as a hub, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And then we have the procurement enterprise, and that's around access. So our kind of main focus is education, experience, and access. So the procurement enterprise is to allow individuals and businesses to access local produce. We have amazing local produce in Lancashire, and a lot of it goes out of the county, and farmers are really keen that it goes to people in Lancashire, but it's the way that it's set up. The system is set up so that it goes out of the county. Some of it comes back to the supermarkets, but it's very complicated, and we want to try and simplify that. So our strapline is food fairness for all, and this is around us believing that everybody should have access to a healthy, sustainable diet, regardless of income. So we closed the cafe on the 21st of March last year, and on the 23rd of March, we opened up to deliver meals. So my background's in nutrition, so what we decided that we were going to do is offer meals, cooked, nutritious meals to people. So we worked with a variety of organisations, including we had I'm saying Gateshead because we've just been hearing Gateway Housing Association, which is a big housing association, the church, and Age Concern, and also that we have a homeless charity in Preston. And so we worked with these partners to make sure that people who needed meals were able to access them, and we had a team of volunteers. We are overnight, we put a call out for volunteers, and overnight we had 40 people who had volunteered to help out. Just interestingly, I really was interested in the conversation about volunteers. We strongly believe that we shouldn't rely on volunteers. But some of our volunteers actually want to be volunteers, but what we've been able to do is employ quite a few of our volunteers over the last few months, and that's what we tried to do. And the volunteers that we can't offer payment to, we try and pay them in other ways. So we provide training and support them in work, and try to give them the skills that they need to get into any paid employment. We also ran our Kids in the Kitchen program. Kids in the Kitchen initially was a program that was run face-to-face in the holidays. It was our holiday hunger program, but we managed to put it online very quickly. So we provided videos and recipes, and initially we started delivering ingredients out to families. And then we started with the voucher scheme. So that started at Christmas, at the Christmas holidays, and we ran it again over Easter. So what that means is that we have vouchers that go out to families, and they can exchange those vouchers at certain market stalls that sell local produce. So it was really great to work with the market stall holders, and it had been a very quiet time for them, so they were really keen to be on board. And it's been a really nice piece of work. And the idea is that we build our discounted food card scheme that I'm going to mention in a minute on the voucher scheme, so that people have kind of got used to that way of doing things. We were very lucky. We won quite a few awards over the last year because of the work that we were doing, and I was very surprised to get an MBE, which I received on behalf of the staff and the volunteers. I don't know how we've done it, but we've managed to employ 4 new staff. So these new staff were volunteers, and initially I've recruited a further 30 regular volunteers. We've had various small grants coming in, and we've managed to juggle funding around, so we've been able to give people work when they've needed it. We ran a community cook-along with the Farm in the Future guys, and that was brilliant. So we had hot pot. Lancashire hot pot is our signature dish in Lancashire, and we had 1,000 people cooking hot pot on the same day, and that was every ingredient in the hot pot was local. And so we did that in October, and that's really helped people to engage with us, and we wanted people to really start thinking more about where their food is coming from. And then we've just acquired a new catering business, and the catering business is we were doing outside catering before, but we've acquired the catering because we want to provide employment to ex-offenders, and this is going to be run by ex-offenders and people in long-term unemployment. We've also acquired some growing space at 3 farms. One of the farms, we're working very closely with Andrea, she's very experimental, and she's growing a lot of stuff for, we're trying to experiment with growing. So if we have a big Pakistani family community in Preston, and we're experimenting with growing for the Asian market and other things. And what we're trying to do with the space that we have at the farms is to demonstrate to other farmers more sustainable farming methods. And we're just in the process of setting up our Open Food Network hub. And I'm just going to go through this quite quickly because I don't want to be talking too much. So with the Academy, this is our plan for this year. So we are now continuing to develop our accredited employability and hospitality courses to ex-offenders. So we got approval by the NC, that's a National College of Further Education, to deliver accredited courses, so we can run professional qualifications, which is fantastic for a small organisation. If you run a small organisation, it's worth putting in the hard work, because certainly where we are, a lot of the colleges don't cater for people who might not see colleges, people that might be considered marginalised and wouldn't see college as an option. We're also expanded our range of online and face-to-face courses. So we're in the process of putting together a permaculture course and other masterclasses. I've mentioned about the catering business, which is great. So this is in a different venue, and that will hopefully be run by our ex-offenders. And we're looking to turn the cafe space into a farm shop that will sell the same produce that we have on our Open Food Network platform. And because our cafe isn't necessarily going to survive COVID, I'm not really sure, we don't get a lot of footfall, what we've decided to do is offer it as a space for the community where people can meet and showcase their work. So we've we've got a knitting group that meet weekly, we've got a ukulele group, we've got a repair cafe. So instead of just opening up straight away as a cafe, we're offering it to the community to come and hold spaces for people that want to learn or just want to get together. We have mental health groups, and we just ask that they buy refreshments from us, and but it's not necessarily open to the public, because I don't think we would survive that. Once with the procurement and the city farm, once we have set up our Open Food Network, we will be looking at ways. We will be we're working with the Housing Association to make sure that there are satellite hubs, so it's not just one place that they come and collect from, that we're looking at having produce there in community centres. And we're also going to be running cookery demonstrations online and face-to-face. But what we want to be able to do is find a way of making that affordable, which is what we're going to talk about. We're working with one of our celebrity chefs, Nigel Howarth, at the moment, who's helping us with the farm project and to make sure that the plots that we have on the farms in Lancashire are demonstrating sustainable farming practices. And we're looking for 3 acres of land ourselves so that we can have, we can run horticulture courses and also grow some of the things that aren't necessarily grown well in Lancashire, so we want to experiment with those. And okay, so the blockchain expert that we're working with, I wish he was here to explain a little bit about cryptocurrency, but what we are looking to do at the moment is we've applied for some funding to develop what we're calling the LANC, and it's a land and nature currency, and that's what it stands for. And what we want to do is have a kind of community shares program that will then allow the shareholders an opportunity to donate any profits or excess in their shares to our discounted food scheme program. So that again is a massive experiment. I have no idea how it's going to work, but we are going to give it a go and see if we can find a way of making that subsidise the produce. So the most of our work is in the community at the moment, and yeah, so the discounted food card, we're working in partnership with DEFRA, Farm in the Future, and we're speaking to the New Economic Foundation about doing some financial modelling, because we want to run a pilot initially to find out how many people, we need to know how many people we need to run the pilot with to make it actually feasible. And we also need to know what percentage discount people will need on the cards. We're just doing some work at the moment around social prescribing. We've been doing this for a while, but we didn't really know that it was called social prescribing. So we are now part of the Learning Together programme on social prescribing, and we offer various programmes and opportunities for people to get involved. And we're part of the Sustained Veg Advocate programme that's, we've got 3 veg advocates. And what we are trying to do to tackle food poverty is to really try and tackle food poverty in a dignified and empowering manner. So we have a Food Champions programme where we train people to deliver healthy eating courses and workshops within their own community, and our Kids in the Kitchen programme that I've already mentioned. So that's kind of what we're doing in a nutshell, excuse me. And I'd really like to hand over to you just to, first of all, see if you have any questions, and then secondly, to ask if you have any thoughts or experience of trying to make local food, because what we want to try to do is support the local economy, give people an opportunity to buy affordable produce that is healthy and sustainable. So how do we do that? So yeah, over to you. I'll take this down. Okay.
Okay, how have you funded all this?
Okay, good question. Initially, well, first of all, we didn't have any funding. So I worked for about 2 years without any funding, which was a bit of a nightmare. We then got some lottery funding for 3 years. So it basically funded, it was our core costs. So it's basically staff costs. That ran out in February. And we have been relying on small grants that we've got during COVID. So most of the grants have been around about, I think we've had about 4 grants, which average of about £10,000. So at the moment, we are in a bit of a dip. So we're applying at the moment. We're applying to the Heritage Lottery for some funding, which if we get it, that'll allow us to operate for another 3 years. It's always like that. I think in my sort of experience of this type of work. Most of the stuff that we have at the moment, though, so the cafe, the academy, and the Open Food Network is all financially sustainable. And the staff that are involved in those aspects of the project are paid through the business. So we have kind of two accounts. We have the community business that pays me and the lady that does the social media. And then we have the cooperative. So we're a workers' cooperative, and that's the business side. So that generates enough income to pay those staff. And we do everything on a shoestring. Like when we did our Kids in the Kitchen program, luckily we have some fantastic volunteers, but we did it on it cost us, I think it cost us about £6,000 to run the program, I think for about 100 families, and that's with the food. So
Okay.
we've got without very much money.
Excellent.
Hi, yes, I wanted to ask something. It is amazing, everything you've done, amazing. So my question is, over how many years, how long, and how many people are involved in delivering this, and how big the worker scope is? Thank you.
Thank you. Good question. I first started working on this around about 10 years ago with the ideas coming up. And I didn't really know how to go about it. I set up Sustainable Food Lancashire, and that was a group of about 17 people from across Lancashire who were responsible for food and health related work. So like public health and various, NFU, people like that. And then we developed the charter. And then from there, I think it's about just over 6 years ago, I set up the Larder as a social enterprise with 2 other people. And then in July 2018, myself and 2 colleagues then set up the workers' cooperative. So one of the people, so because of COVID, one of the people in the cooperative has retired, and there are other people who are furloughed, who are what we have as part of the criteria to join the co-op is you have to have worked with us for 6 months, and then you've got an opportunity to join. And unfortunately, the 2 people that have got that opportunity are furloughed at the moment, and one of them's in Greece. So we are actually only 2, but we are operating as a cooperative, and we have another member of staff who started about 6 months ago that will be getting the opportunity to be part of the cooperative. So I imagine that once we get ourselves organised, we'll probably have 6 people as part of the cooperative, and it's a choice. And so the people who are working with us, they have a choice. You can work for the co-op, but you don't necessarily have to be a member. It's your choice. Does that answer the question, Nuria?
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
Hi, can I ask a question? Quick one.
Yes. Hi, Corinna.
Something, because my background was education, and by the way, everything you've just said, I think has made me not want an exit strategy. I want to get more into food and sustainability. But my background's education, and I've always thought I've had the meetings with NCFE, and I'm ready to become a training provider, but I don't want to sort of pay the £500 until I know I've got people to train. And I was wondering how you get your funding to train people? Is it a chargeable course, or do you draw down, or do you apply for different pots?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. Yeah, when we first went to the NCFE, it's all a little bit complicated, and I'll try and simplify it. We've been having various conversations with Achieve Northwest, which are a private probation company. So they committed to paying for ex-offenders to come onto our courses. So we went through the process, and then what's happened is that Achieve Northwest started to merge with the government probation service, and so that fell by the wayside. And so luckily there was a WEA grant that came up in the meantime, so that's actually paid us, because I think we paid, it was over £1,000 to register with the NCFE. It's very expensive, but because we thought we had the funding, and then we didn't have the funding, but then we got this WEA funding, so we were really lucky to get that. So that's paid for it, but it's a big chunk of money to pay when you are in fact, it's probably worth you going to the WEA and just finding out if they've had some European funding still available.
So are all your training courses free to the end user?
Yes.
Yeah, they're all funded. And once you've done that for a couple of years, you can start drawing down from the education pot, but you've got to prove yourself first.
This has been, and it's taken us a really long time. What we initially wanted to do was to partner with a local college, but after this stringing us along for actually 2 years, it didn't work out. So it's actually better now. We're happier, having that. So yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you.
WEA though, I definitely recommend. I'm just having a look because there's a couple of questions here. I'm just seeing if I can see. Sorry, Michelle asking, although based in Preston, do you expand in Lancashire? Yes, we do. We are mainly focusing on Preston, but we're working at the moment, we're having conversations at the moment with Lancaster University and Lancashire County Council and the LEP about developing the charter into a sustainable food strategy for the whole of Lancashire, and then trying to link all of the people working in this area up and expanding some of the work that we do.
Oh, thank you for that. Yes, I'm just joining a small group in Fylde, so interesting to know you down the road.
Get in touch, Michelle, because a couple of our farms are over there, and yes, and we've had various conversations with people over there. So
excellent. I'll let other people ask questions. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Okay. I'm just trying to read Lydia. So, since you are providing service to the community at different levels, is there a sense? I can't see the bottom of that message.
You want me to? Hello. You want me to just ask it directly? Thanks. I'm just wondering what sense is there? What sort of is the engagement of the local council? And because you seem to be providing a sort of services at different levels, right? And potentially, health and waste management, all sorts of things that are. To some extent, the state's responsibility. So I wonder whether the local council, or you've mentioned EFRA as well, whether there are resources and spaces and programs that are there to enable these sorts of initiatives and to fund some of this work, and whether there should be more of a case for advocating for public funding to be more readily available to support these local initiatives. Thank you.
Yeah, that is a very good question. So Preston City Council, when I first started setting up the Larder, there was a woman called Alison Watts, who was this amazing woman who was employed by the council as a nutrition worker. So she was doing a lot of cooking classes in the community. So we worked together. So basically the council gave her time, so her time was used to support the work of the larder, and it worked really, really well. And unfortunately, due to cutbacks, her post, well, not unfortunately actually, because it worked out quite well. So her post was, she was made redundant. So this was at the same time that we got the lottery funding. So the larder were able to employ Alison. So it worked really well, but that meant that there was nobody at Preston City Council that had any responsibility for any community food work. And there's a community engagement team, but a kind of lack of understanding of how this type of work works. So it's our relationship with the council that had been very close has become more distant over time, because there's not really a commitment to support the work that we do. And unfortunately, over COVID, they have supported the food bank model. And although we understand that food banks are very important, what we try to do is make sure that we've got a more dignified approach, because our thoughts are that we shouldn't be providing people on low incomes with waste food is not very empowering. So we don't go down that route. But we do support some of the food banks. Obviously, there's a need for them. So we're kind of sort of doing very different things. So the council have gone down that route, and we're working in the way that we're working. However, now we're having some very good and productive conversations with Lancashire County Council. So we've got a two-tier system in Lancashire. So we've got the county council and then the city councils. So this is looking quite promising. Initially, we were working very closely with public health, Lancashire wide, and that's they funded the charter. But unfortunately, when they transitioned from the NHS to the council, a lot of the funding was cut. So they had that a lot of the officers on the ground were made redundant. So that's we do work a little bit with public health at the moment, but it's just very difficult without funding. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed, if we can get the LEP seem to have some funding. So if they are able to fund this piece of work and develop with us the strategy, then there will need to be funding available to implement it, I would hope. Thank you, though.
Thanks very much for that.
Okay. Okay. And then I've got another question here. I'm really sorry, but for some reason, I've got a small laptop and it isn't letting me read the messages very well. So who is that? Rachel. Rachel, are you able to ask your question?
Yeah, of course I can. Basically, I'm in Brighton and it's buzzing with affordable food schemes and food banks, and there's so much work being done in the city by disparate different organisations popping up and all sorts of things going. And I just wondered if it was very different there, and that which model do you think might be preferable? It sounds potentially like you're kind of going against the tide and you're changing opinions, and maybe we don't have the same problem so much in Brighton. And I'm just wondering whether you felt that you kind of having that overall strategy for Preston works well in terms of being able to change things, or whether you felt more that the system we have in Brighton, where there's lots of organisations chipping away at the same things, means that there's more opportunities to change and to access local affordable food. I just wondered whether you had an opinion, really.
Thank you. That's really interesting. Thanks, Rachel. I do kind of keep up to date with what's happening in Brighton, because I know Ian. Ian is actually from Preston, so we've had lots of conversations. And he when he's been up, we've had conversations about how we can work together. I think there's more of a kind of culture in Brighton. It feels sometimes in Preston like we're banging our head against a brick wall. It's what we've got to do first, I think, in Preston is and this is what we're trying to do, give people information about why food, like I'm talking about food in like as a raw ingredient rather than the processed stuff, that food's it's important. And what we've been doing over the last few years is we do a lot of events and workshops and courses free for people in the community to have that conversation. So it's been about having the conversation, and it's getting there now. We're sort of building up that momentum. I don't know if we'll ever catch up to where Brighton is, but it's quite good to have things going on. And I know some great stuff. And Ian mentioned Plymouth earlier. There's some fantastic stuff going on down south, and we kind of aspire to some of those amazing initiatives. But we've got to bring people with us. And at the moment, we don't want, we want to, we've been very careful, the Larder, we've been very careful to make sure that we base ourselves on what the community need and want. So it's slow going. So it may be that we can get to where you guys are, or we might be going off in a different direction. We're just going to have to see. The kind of, it's a bit of a paradox at the moment that we're working on. So farmers and producers, we've already forced prices down. By supermarkets have forced prices down. So we know that a lot of farmers, small farmers, are struggling. We don't know the effect yet of Brexit and COVID, what that is going to be and how detrimental that's going to be. So what we're trying to do is work with farmers to support them, to get people to buy locally. But if people, so that's people who can afford it, but we don't want the people who can't afford it to miss out. So this is the thing. So how do we make that affordable to the people who at the moment are having to use food banks and buy ready meals? And so there's lots, I think there's lots of ways that we're doing that. So we're trying to do it through conversations, through our cooking classes where we provide budgeting. Through our voucher scheme, we're just trying to introduce people to the concept, and then look at ways that can be subsidized. Now, my colleague Charlie at the moment is looking at really successful models in America. And there's some great examples of where they've kind of moved on from vouchers to the kind of this sort of discounted food card idea. So they go to the stores and they get whatever it is, 25% discount, so they can buy the same food as everybody else. I think that's probably a very convoluted answer to your question, but yeah, I mean, I know the work that's going on and it is great and it is something, but what we don't want to do, there's already lots of food banks and pantries and places where we've got community, sort of a couple of places that have set up kind of community shop style initiatives where the stuff in there is coming from FareShare. Now, we work really closely with FareShare, and we will take stuff from them and we'll make things, and we'll, over COVID, we were getting offered quite a lot of stuff, but we're trying to we're trying to do it in a slightly different way. That's saying, right, okay, you're poor, you can only have waste food. It's
yeah,
and support the main
yeah, because we
Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, so I run an affordable food scheme, so it is kind of similar to one of those shops where we get the food from FareShare, but we also buy food. So Ian Chambers is working with Sussex farmers and bringing those products, and we also buy in from him at a kind of reduced community price rate, which has been great, but it's been a bit of a problem at the moment because it's kind of a hungry gap. And I know that a lot of Ian's produce at the moment, he's having to import it. So he's, the cauliflowers this week, I could either buy 8 imported cauliflowers for about £8 or 1 local cauliflower for about £2. And then I was in this kind of complete dilemma because we've really got an ethos of supporting local, but equally it wasn't affordable. And, so I don't know what I mean. I don't know what happens next with that, really.
No, and this is it, Rachel, and this is the problem, isn't it? You've actually, how do we do it? I don't know how to do it. I'm just hoping that we can find a way of doing it, and maybe, it would be great outside of this conversation to catch up with you, and because you're kind of trying to do something similar. So
yeah.
And I think what's really great about what you're doing, you've already got the people. So if there is an opportunity to bring in local, you've already got your community engagement, haven't you? You've got the people there come into the shop, which is a really, really big step. So yeah, thanks. So I really would like to catch up with you. That sounds really interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
Great.
Definitely.
Okay, and I'm just trying to see who else is. Oh, Maria, would you be okay to ask your question? Hi, is it Maria Billington?
Sorry, sorry. It wasn't really a question. It was more of a sort of our council are actually being quite supportive at the moment. They've actually, but when I say supportive, I mean they've come to us and said, can you run as an experimental food hub for 5 weeks? We've got £20,000. Can you do it? To which we kind of went, well, I'm sure we can do something for £20,000. But then it transpired we could only spend the money on food. I couldn't pay any staff. I couldn't pay a manager. I couldn't pay. I couldn't get marquees to be able to do it safely outside. But what transpired from that is they actually cleared the costs for the manager, and they bought us a trailer, a refrigerated trailer, because of the capacity we had during lockdown. We needed extra cold storage, and we've been paying for that from any emergency funding we could get. So they actually bought us it from this funding, which meant we freed up more of that fund to pay for the other stuff. So
where are you, Maria?
We're in Wolverhampton.
Okay.
So we run a community hub, but we also run the Real Junk Food Project Wolverhampton.
Right.
And previously we'd been running surplus food market on site, and we switched during COVID. In the first few weeks, we switched to food box delivery system for anybody. So we're very much food is for everyone. Yes. And surplus food has value. It's not. Yes. It's not. We're not just giving away food to poor people because they need it. We're giving away food that has value to anybody who wants it, and we do it on a pay-as-you-feel basis as well. So we're feeding probably 250 households a week currently. But this experimental food hub was about learning about what people actually want as food, and this really excites me. And I wonder if anybody else is doing any work on this around, so we ran it for 5 weeks, and the biggest ask was cheese. and these are excuse me, we're in a high deprivation area, so these are families that don't have a lot. There is a lot of food poverty. A lot of them use food banks, and they're not getting the fresh vegetables that they need, but they're not getting the things like cheese or spices or things that are expensive, but a little bit goes a long way and it jazzes up your meal. Yeah. So I'm really interested in how we can move this forward into sustainable projects where people are getting store cupboard basics that those of us who can and have to make our food nice can help them learn how to cook and, you know, have nice meals that are actually a lot cheaper than the food they're currently buying.
Just you're talking there about spices. We did a project, kind of kids in the kitchen project a few years ago, and what we started doing in the one of the community centres was we had a cupboard that people could bring spices and put them in the cupboard, and then people could just take them out. So it was like, it was because when we ran the cooking classes, a lot of people like to buy a jar of spices is quite a big expense if you don't have a lot of money, and it's going to last you, you know, it might last you a year. So what we did was we just said to people, look, if you've got anything that you're not using, bring it, and then anybody that needs it can take it. And it worked really well, and that's something that stopped obviously because of COVID, and it's not been face to face. But I think that's something that we're going to continue. But it is, and some of these, you know, sort of basics are it's a big outlay, isn't it, initially?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, we have kind of discussed that we can buy in. We could buy in big packs, because you can buy big packs for the same price as you can buy a tiny little bottle.
Yeah.
So how can we decant that safely and so on? And of course, because it's been really difficult, but I think we're going to end up going down that route. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Thank you very much for making that. And can I just quickly ask, where did the money, the £20,000 come from?
I'm not 100% sure. I think it was from central government, and I think it's part of these food initiatives to feed people during the crisis. We're not 100% sure. We basically got told there's 20 grand, we need to spend it by the end of the month. Can you help? And they've just given us 4 grand more.
But it's good that they gave it to you, because I mean, that's just, you know, it could have got frittered away by somebody. That's good. Yeah, okay, thank you for that. Okay, I'm just having a look. Oh yeah, so spices, yeah, the spice swap, yeah, that somebody else has done that. It's great actually that and are there any more? Hang on, is it Corinna? I can see that you've made a comment there. Would you be able to? Oh, take your microphone.
It was just a couple of things really, just to say it would be great if we could have like a subgroup of, say, if the community business patchwork around food, because I think so many of us have this in common. And in the main patchwork, I know there's lots of other social enterprises. I think it would be really nice to have sort of like a group around just food, because we've got so much shared knowledge that we can have together, and we've only got 117 seconds left to do it.
No, we could just keep talking about this. I think that's a great idea. I'd love to. And you know, and obviously the question that I posed about how we can make local food affordable to people on low incomes, I think I think there's a lot of experts in this room. We don't know, but we're all trying in our different ways, and I'd love to continue this conversation. I think it's really valuable. In the last sort of 86 seconds, is there anything else? I can see a few comments there. Is there anything else, any points that anybody wants to make, or quick questions?
Yes, you were talking about buying things in bulk. Do you know about the Wing Yip supermarkets? It's a huge Chinese wholesaler, and you buy in bulk, but even allowing for that, it's still so cheap. And when I bought a packet of Chinese 5-spice the last time I was there, that was 3 years ago, and I'm only halfway down it, and I use it regularly. So, but there's only 4 in the UK. So if you go onto their website, you can find out where they are. That might be.
Say that again.
That might help.
What's it called? The supermarket.
Wing Yip.
Wing Yip. So okay.
Yeah.
So you can...
Wing as in birds' wings, and Yip as in YIP.
Okay. Thanks a lot for that. That's I haven't heard of it, but it's worth looking at up there. That's written in.
It's massive. There's a big one in Birmingham, one in London.
Okay.
Can't remember where the others are.
Thanks, Catherine. Anybody else?
I'd definitely like to carry on the conversation, because this is all the sort of thing that we're we've been doing bits of it, but we're wanting to sort of really take it off and get to where you are, really.
Well, it'd be great to share. I'm sure there's stuff that you're doing that we can learn from. So, yeah.